We are so excited that you have joined us today for a Franchise Ownership 101 with FranNet. And so, this is another business model that any of our businesses should be taking a look at and understanding as they are looking at business opportunities. So, we're so excited that even in the midst of COVID, there is an opportunity for businesses to start. And so, that is one of our roles, is to assist you in that process today. So, welcome again. Our role to help businesses to start, grow, and to succeed. And let me put in there, survive and succeed is actually what we are doing. As part of the PCR SBDC, you are part of a broader network of 1,000 centers around the country. There are 9 in the LA area, and this one operates typically in Wilshire and Vermont. We are here to help you. Of course, we are helping everyone digitally and online currently. The services that we offer are one-on-one services with advisors, whether it's legal, marketing, finance, anything, certification, restaurant academy. So we have so many areas where we can assist you with. And then we're also doing webinars such as these, where we can provide you great information on whether it is a business model or lending, grants. We've been doing a lot of that over the last, boy, seems like almost a year. So I'm glad you guys are still engaged. Thank you, Freddie, for showing yourself, and Jack. We do like to see some faces sometimes so that we know there are live people on the call. And Celeste, we appreciate you and thank you. So my name is Colette Moore. I'm the director of PCR SBDC. And I have been with the center for about a year. And prior to that, I was actually a client of PCR SBDC, and I was a franchise owner. So I'm hoping that you all can learn and grow today. Prior to that, I worked for Disney for many, many years on the marketing side. And so going into a franchise, it's not a small thing, but that's why we have help. And that's why we're getting information today and have our specialists to come and advise you. And then you can work with your individual advisors. As we go forward, we'd ask if you would please keep yourselves muted. Put your questions into the chat and we will be able to answer those. I have checked with our speaker today, and Christina said that she'll be available after this so we can go over a little bit if the questions become a lot, because there's a lot of good content today. Our goal is to help you to be successful regardless of whatever business model that you are participating in. There's no panacea. It's hard work and knowing your numbers, which we are always focusing on, and then learning how to operate your business successfully. So Christina Hoffield is going to be doing a self-introduction, but we're happy that she reached out to me from FranNet to be able to provide you all this great information. And so before we go to Christina, I did want to just review quickly the key workshop objectives, pros and cons, why even consider a franchise, what type of business models exist. So there are different business models even within franchising. What industries might you want to take a look at? How can this work? What makes a good franchise owner? How will you be good at this? What are the financing options? And as we know, financing is very, very important to us. And then how does one research and evaluate franchise businesses and not get overwhelmed? And so I'm happy to present to you all today Christina, and Christina Hoffield is going to do a self-introduction for us. I'm going to turn it over. Christina, all yours.
Terrific.
And welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I am thrilled to be here, really, Colette and the PCR SBDC. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you about entrepreneurship and business ownership, which is an area that I'm really passionate about. So we're going to cover a lot of ground today, and I talk fast. So bear with me. If you have any questions, you can chat them. Colette will help me to facilitate answering them. But by way of introduction, and of course, now I can't advance my screen here as we talk about technical difficulties. Let me go to, all right. Here we go. So my name is Christina Hoffield, and I am with, as we mentioned, FranNet. So I have spent a majority of my career working for large global law firms. I've worked for startup companies. My first trip into entrepreneurship was working for a large law firm. And I had gotten out of a venture-backed company, worked for a large law firm, and we represented VC-backed companies or companies that were looking for capital. And I loved working with these entrepreneurs and business owners and helping them to find those resources and to connect them with others in the community. So I love connecting people and really being that catalyst. So we're going to cover a lot of ground today. I have a QR code up here. If you want a copy of the slide deck, put your phone up to the QR code. If I can answer any questions, I'll show this again at the end and cover a little bit more, but we're going to cover a lot of ground. We'll talk about FranNet. We'll talk about business ownership during COVID. We're going to talk about the 4 pillars of business ownership, the risks and rewards of all of them. We're going to dive deeper into franchise ownership and some of the myths out there, some of the preconceived notions, and really some of the realities that as a franchise owner that you'll see, or somebody researching them. We'll talk about financing, as Colette mentioned, and really helping you to understand how to research them. So if
and
you
Christina,
yeah.
Christina, we're not seeing that slide, the slides advancing there.
You are not.
Nope.
Okay. So let me stop the share here and go back up. So you're not seeing, let me try to reshare because it just worked before. So,
and thank you all for your notes too. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Are you on the agenda slide?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Are you on the Who is FranNet?
Just on the agenda slide currently.
Okay. How do I, any suggestions? Because it's sharing on my end.
Let me see what I can do here.
I'm seeing them advance. So, Zoom share. Is this working?
What platform are you utilizing?
I'm on Zoom, but my slides are in Keynote.
Christina, can you resend it to me?
I am. I'm going to do
the
that
presentation
right now.
And I will pull it right up and we'll keep
perfect.
Going.
That sounds
Thank
great.
Thank you all.
Thank you for bearing with us. Of course, technical difficulties, right? Let me open my email box, Colette. Stop share.
All right. And one question here is if you don't have the QR code, we can drop that in. But the QR code is very easy. If you put your phone up to the screen, once we re-show that, it'll take you directly to the link. So just give us 1 second.
Yep, give us 1 second. I just had to open up. I closed everything out. So export.
And you guys, what's funny is we did test this before you came on.
I know.
So I'm not sure. We're not sure what happened. So thank you for your patience.
Called technology.
Yep, and we're all getting to be pros, and then we think we know it all, right? We think, oh, we got this down, done it 100 times. All right.
Technology guys have a dark sense of humor.
They do. They really do. Okay, Colette, I just got that sent off. So I will let Colette advance the slides here. And thankfully I did print them out, so I know what's coming. But I will, talk about, we have business ownership during COVID. You guys are all in it. You're going through it or you're researching it. So we're going to cover that. And I'll start talking as Colette gets the slideshow up, but tell you a little bit about FranNet. We are a 30-year-old business consulting, franchise consulting firm. And what we do is we help match people who are interested in business ownerships with franchise opportunities. We have over 100 offices throughout the US, Canada, and in Europe. And we're the only national franchise consulting firm to have a national partnership with the SBDC and with SCORE. And are really, for us, we love the SBDC and the services they provide because we are big believers in education. Knowledge is power, and we can only be as good as the information that we have and the research that we do. Colette, was the slide deck able to come through? Oh, perfect. If you go to the next slide, I think we're the Who is FranNet? You want to go to the next slide? Okay, perfect. So again, we match people with businesses that meet their model, and our services are free. So similar to an executive search firm, we would get paid by the franchisor if a franchise was awarded. You can go to the next slide. So how do we do this? So we help to educate our clients, on business ownership, which is what we're doing here. And we have a variety of more tools, including one-on-one coaching. And then we offer our clients choices so they can really make informed decisions. We pre-screen all of the businesses that we work with that come to us to be in our system. And I was thrilled and really proud to learn that we actually turn away 4 out of 5 businesses that come to us. We want to make sure we have a depth and breadth of businesses that meet our clients' primary needs and meet their standards. So we have a team that vets and validates and researches this. And we don't sell franchises. We're really that matchmaker. You can go to the next slide. So I don't want to sound insensitive. I know we're all in this middle of this pandemic, but we've been around for 30 years and have seen different business cycles, right? We've seen the dot-com, 9/11, the Great Recession. What we're working with now is different than anything that we've seen. We've seen some of our clients when the pandemic first started, they put a big halt on it. There was a lot of fear, and I think there still is. And we've also seen people look at this economy as a time to leverage what's going on. What we've seen over the past year is a focus on recession resistant, and now we're seeing COVID resistant businesses, looking at businesses that have a lower overhead and service-based essential services, things that have stayed open. Colette and I were talking yesterday. There is, some people have said this is a good time to look at businesses. Real estate is available. So, 2 years ago, if you were looking at a fitness business, boutique fitness, and you needed it to be by a Whole Foods, you didn't have a lot of options. There's more real estate. Landlords are amenable to negotiations. There's a great employee pool to choose from. So you have, there are a lot of good reasons to go into business now. You can go to the next slide, Colette. So what are some of those businesses? And, I know we all can sort of read the papers and see what's going on. There are some of these businesses that have proven successful and solid, and even some of them had their best years ever this year. So some of these markets that you look at are driven by demographics. So in the case of senior care, there are a variety of different types of senior care businesses. One of the trends has been from facility-based senior care, people moving their family members, their loved ones home, but realizing they still need that care, so that at-home care. And we're all at our house, we're all looking around going, oh, I really need to, fix my baseboards or do some landscaping. Those businesses have been doing really well. Cleaning services, residential and commercial. The #1 franchise within FranNet that our clients purchased in 2020 was an eco-friendly cleaning business. I don't think any of us would have actually guessed that going into 2020. But with a solid business model and a great growth plan, they have proven to be very successful. So essential services, well, we all, go grocery shopping or get them delivered, but go somewhere where you can't miss a sign that says, 6 feet apart or wear a mask. Businesses, even without COVID, are changing their signage, every few weeks. So commercial signage has been a strong industry. UPS stores, the mailing and shipping stores, we also have to get our cars repaired. We're still going to get pipe leaks and slab leaks. So I don't know about you, but I drive around my neighborhood. I see restoration businesses really, all over the place. And health and wellness. That's, another area that in the early days of the pandemic here in California, that was shut down and then it was deemed essential. Something you might not think of is that businesses that help other businesses, so business coaching, marketing and advertising, there's some financial service areas, staffing, companies are still needing to staff up, training. So there are a variety of franchisable businesses and businesses to take a look at. Oops, I think that was the last slide. Okay, perfect. So we're going to talk about the 4 pillars of business ownership. So as somebody who's thinking of owning a business, what are your options? Starting up your own company with your own product or service, consulting, buy an existing business, or buy a franchise. And so the next slide, please. If you think of an entrepreneur, ask yourself, what do I see these successful entrepreneurs? What are some of their traits? Do I have any of these? So some of the traits would be change is constant. They like change. They thrive on change. They're just never comfortable. They're always looking for something, they plan for change, looking for that new step to take. People who like to be in control, make their own decisions, looking for greater security. And people who are self-directed, competitive, have great leadership skills. I sound like I'm describing my 6-year-old who maybe one day will, be president or an entrepreneur. She likes to delegate and order people around. So just think about some of those common traits of an entrepreneur. Next slide. So you could start your own business, come up with your own product or service. Kind of like when I had mentioned, I worked with VC-backed technology companies. So what are the advantages? Well, you are in control. This is your company. You are coming up with everything. You can make all the decisions. Some people thrive on this. You can be as creative as you want. You can figure it all out. There are no rules. You make the rules. You're in charge. And if the company is successful, there's a great upside because you started it. And you can build a business from your passion, which is important to some people. What are the disadvantages? Well, you must create your own systems. So when you think of, if you're hiring employees, you got to put an HR and a payroll system in place. You've got to come up with your financial and accounting systems, your marketing systems, everything. It's a slower ramp up because you're putting all of that in place. And startup businesses do have the highest failure rate. And it's a long learning curve. So you have to give yourself grace going into that. There are limited financial options as well. You don't have a history of, of cash flow. You don't have a history of customers and invoices that are getting paid. And, so it's really more difficult to get lending when you're starting your own business. Next slide. Independent consulting. I work with a lot of executives in transition and sit in on a lot of networking meetings. And through the pandemic, this has been an area that I think a lot of people have pivoted towards, in addition to doing their job search, to keep their skill set up, to keep income coming in, and to look at consulting. You use your own skills that you bring to the table. And oftentimes companies, they might not have a budget for a W-2 employee, but they do have a budget for project-based work. So what are some of those advantages? Lower cost, quick startup. You don't really need much in the way of inventory to get started. Again, you're in control, being creative, making all the decisions, and it's based on your skills. Some of the disadvantages, Again, you're creating your own systems. You're thinking, okay, what am I, got to get my QuickBooks out for my billing and, figuring that out. Maybe you've got to create a website to market yourself. Also, it's important to remember that this is heavy sales. The business isn't just coming to you. You don't just post to LinkedIn what you're doing. You have to network and you have to market, and you have to always be marketing, because you don't know when that project's going to end, and you want to, keep that flow of business. You are getting your own liability insurance. You're liable for anything that would happen. Competition, I think competition is good, and I'll touch on that later, but there's limited resale value. You're not creating an asset that's something that you can sell down the line. Next slide. So buying an existing business, I think a lot of people look at this as being, a really great option. And there's some great advantages. Typically you buy an existing business, they have customers, they have cash flow, there's goodwill there. You can see the actual financial results. It's more attractive to lenders. There are financials that the lender can look at that allows them to be able to loan you the money. There might be a customer base and employees and systems. So there are great advantages there. And at the same time, there are disadvantages. Is there cash flow? Why are there hidden motives that the seller? Are you really looking at the accurate books? Is this really valid? You may lose some employees. People may be disgruntled after the new owners leave, and you may have to rebuild that. So just, various things to think about. Is the business overpriced? Are you getting this business at the right value? And how do you determine what the right value is? So other considerations to think about. Go to the next slide. You can buy a franchise. Advantages and disadvantages. One of the advantages of a franchise is that you have a brand name and name recognition in many cases. If it's a newer concept that may be coming to your market, you have proven business systems. Franchises are all about the systems, which I will talk a lot about. They have great training and support. So you're not having to recreate the wheel. You're coming into, a business that you get trained on in order to operate it effectively. They have the highest success rate of any sort of pillar of the business, of any of these 4 pillars. And it's a fast ramp up because it's been done, and you need to be trained to be able to replicate that. Again, as with buying an existing business, there are financing options because the lenders can see that the business is in place and you're able to finance and take on that debt. And this is important to a lot of people who come from corporate America, who are used to having that team environment and being in that culture. With a franchise, it's really a franchise family. FranNet is a franchise, and we have a great supportive group, supportive team, and we are all there to help each other out on the good days, to help fill in as needed. And so it's a really great environment. So you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And with franchising, you don't need industry experience. You have the proven systems. And of course, there are disadvantages. There aren't as many industry options. There's not you can't be creative and come up with ideas and concepts. They oftentimes will have really structured operating systems. So if you're somebody who doesn't like to work within that, want to do your own thing, it's something to think about. And also within a franchise, you have territory restrictions. So you are getting a license to do business within a certain geographic area and not outside of that area. You can only sell the products or services that the franchise business allows you to. So in the example of a wellness center, you can't bring in your own vitamins. You have to sell what the business wants you to sell. And in exchange for that system, you are paying an ongoing royalty payment to the franchisor. Next slide. So what is a franchise? It really is that license to do business in the name of another company and to use their trademark, to use their business system. And in exchange, you pay a royalty, which is typically about 4 to 6%. Next slide. So again, things to consider. Are you someone who can work well with some guardrails there? Are you a team player, or are you one who really wants to do these things yourself? There are ways, which we'll talk about through the franchise research process, that allow you to mitigate some of the risk more than other avenues. But there still is risk. Is that something you're willing to take on? And understanding that it's not easier, it's not less work, it is all hard work. But is this something that you're ready for? And what are your transferable skills? You may not need industry experience, but do you have management skills, maybe operational, sales and marketing? What are the skills you're bringing to the table? And how can you find the businesses that really need to utilize your skills? And then again, it's making sure that you work with trusted partners like the SBDC and advisors who have broad franchise experience, which is going to be key at the end of the process if you do decide to move forward. Next slide. So what are some of the business models within franchising? So there are a couple of them. There's the semi-absentee, which is sort of the executive model, and there is the owner-operator model. So within the semi-absentee model, it's where you are working on the business, not in the business. So most of these people will have another full-time corporate job, own another business. They're investing in a business that they can lead. They can manage the KPIs, the key performance indicators, 10, 12 hours a week. Most of that is done remotely. The technology is that great that you can do a lot of that from your phone. So you are managing the manager. You don't need industry experience. Most of these require storefront. Most of these will be at a higher investment. You can think the UPS stores, fitness centers, hair salons, those types of, some construction, those types of businesses. Next slide. Again, think that you need that real estate. So again, that's going to be more expensive. Most of the time, it's again that there's advertising dollars that are going into it. We talked a little bit about the segments: shipping, postage, construction, fitness, wellness, and there's some of those that have done well during COVID, and some that have not. So that diligence piece is going to be really important, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Next slide. And then there's the owner operator. So this is where you are working full time in the business, on the business. Let's say you do purchase, you're one of our clients who purchased this eco-friendly cleaning company. Are you doing the cleaning? No. But you are managing, hiring, growing, marketing, networking within the community. So those are your transferable skills that you're bringing. You're bringing those leadership skills. You are helping to grow the business, supervising the teams. Again, you don't need that industry experience. You need the experience of the business, that management or marketing. Next slide. So let's talk about myths. So, let's be honest. If we think franchising, what is the first thing that comes to your mind, right? The golden arches, probably one of the best marketing stories out there. Next slide. So the fact is that there are over 4,000 different franchised companies in more than 90 different industries. So there's a lot to choose from. We covered a little bit of it earlier. I'm always being surprised by new companies coming into our inventory and, thinking, oh, I didn't realize, but that makes sense that you can franchise an estate sale business, for example. Next slide. So again, I'm going to hit on McDonald's, but the myth number 2 is franchises succeed because of the quality of the product. Next slide. So I'm going to ask you, can you make a burger? Can you make a better burger than McDonald's? I'm sure I see you all nodding your heads over there. So if it's not the product, if we can all make a better burger than McDonald's, then what makes them so successful? Next slide. It's the business system. It is their, I mean, they do it better than anybody, right? The marketing, the sales, the accounting, the operations, they are a well-oiled machine. And so franchising is about the business systems. Next slide. So myth number 3, successful franchises emerge where there is no competition, fear competition. Next slide. That's absolutely wrong. You know, a franchised business is not going to go into an area where there is no competition. They want competition. And as a franchisee, you just want a share of that. You want to gain that market share. And that's what's going to make you successful. But don't fear competition. Myth number 4, franchises are expensive. You know, you think in your head, how much do you think an average franchise would cost? Next slide. Is this what you were thinking? You know, there are only a few franchised businesses over $500,000, and those are the Chick-fil-A's and the McDonald's and, you know, those larger businesses. But most of our clients look at businesses that are anywhere within that 60 to 250,000 range. That's really sort of that sweet spot. You know, the higher end, again, is going to be at that brick and mortar, and the lower end is typically going to be that owner operator home-based service business. Next slide. So how much money do you need to start a franchise? Well, or, you know, a business, buying a business. So typically you are going to have to think you're going to put, you know, 20 to 30% of your own money into the business. And then you're going to go ahead and finance the rest. So, you know, we will help you. We will have, you know, the SBDC is an area that can also guide you as you work through those financials. Oftentimes, many franchisors have a minimum net worth requirement, which that could be your 401k, your savings, your stocks, you own a home. But they also want to make sure that you have the working capital to get started on the business, that when you do start the business, you're not worrying about paying your mortgage. You're worrying about growing the business, and you can look 2, 3, 5 years out when you're getting started. So, you know, begin with the end in mind. Next slide. So what are some of the financing sources? Again, we are so fortunate that we're on here with the SBDC because they're a fantastic resource. We see people financing from their personal savings. Again, you know, friends, family, business partners, those are other ways. Right now, you know, people are combining various forms. So home equity lines of credit, they're quick. The money is cheap right now. Portfolio loans are also popular. It's similar to the home equity line where you're borrowing against the equity in your home. You're borrowing against the equity that you have in your investment portfolio. And then we have the SBA. So the SBA is a great resource and a great avenue. They are taking longer. You know, we've seen clients who are approved for their SBA loan in June that literally are just getting started right now. So that's a consideration as you're looking at financing. They also may have more industry experience requirements as you're looking at that loan. So all things to consider as you're looking forward. And then I would say, you know, this is a sort of a hidden area that probably about 75% of our clients end up utilizing to fund their business. And it's called the Rollover for Business Startup Plan, or ROBS. So this has been around for about 30 years. And it's a funding mechanism where you borrow against your 401k or IRA, as long as you're not currently working with that employer. And you use those funds to invest in the 401k for your own business, tax deferred and penalty free. And there are some great tax benefits at the end when you go to sell the business. So we work with folks like the SBDC and other funding partners, again, in the spirit of education, to really help you understand personally for you, what are your options and what are the best resources for you to get started. Myth number 5, if I'm going to make the money I want to make out of this business, I have to invest a lot of money in it. Well, next slide. That's not true. There is no correlation between the cost of the business and the potential return. So oftentimes, service-based businesses require a lot less capital, a lot less to start up. You're not bringing in product inventory. Oftentimes, you're not having a large retail space, and they often yield higher returns. So it's all about really finding what it is that fits your unique model and your goals. Next slide. So again, we talked industry experience is required. Next slide. A franchisor, franchises are awarded, they're not purchased. And one of the things that the franchisor does is they're looking for people as you're in this validation process that will use their systems, people who will focus on being an owner and business growth and following their proven system. I was talking to a client the other day, and he was referencing a conversation he had with a friend who owned a franchise business, and it wasn't doing really well. And the franchisor came in and said, well, here's our system. Are you following it? And he's like, well, no, I'm doing it this way instead. I'm doing it this way. And they said, look, you have to follow our system, and let's give it 60 days. And he was blown away. He thought, wow, this actually works. So that, they've done this, they've figured out the kinks, and they're there to support you. So why invest in a franchise? I think I would say, really, in talking to people, the number one thing I hear is people want to build equity, to have a legacy, to have something to pass along to their kids, whether it's at the back end and the financial side, or they want to bring their kids involved in the business. It's building equity, right? So my W-2 paycheck is an equity, but if I have a business that I've invested in, that's something I can sell at a multiple. Most of our clients are probably between the ages of 45 and 65, and looking at, what does that retirement plan look like? How can I have cash flow come in during my retirement? And also, portfolio diversification. I mean, we've all read the news over the past couple of weeks. It's, how can I diversify beyond just my investments when, there's a couple of armchair investors who've really rocked the stock market over the past couple of weeks. Diversification is something that, your financial advisors will talk to you about as being a really critical thing in your portfolio. So how do you find the right fit and what works for you? It's really important to separate the function of the business from the function of the owner. So what do I mean by that? Think about what it is that you're good at. What are your skills? Are you an operations person? Are you coming from human resources or marketing? And what does the business do? So I use this example when I talk to people is, we have a franchise business that we work with that it's porta potties and trash receptacles at construction sites. So both combined into one instead of having to contract with both companies. And you want to think about, am I okay owning a porta potty business? Is that something I could be proud of? But most importantly, is this business going to get me where I need to be? And do I have the skill set to take it there? So those are important things to think about. Next slide. So again, ask yourself the questions. Will I follow systems? Is this within my budget? There's going to be risk, but is this acceptable risk? Have I done all the research to help mitigate that risk? And will I enjoy it at the end of the day, right? We want to go and do something that gives us fulfillment. Will I be finding fulfillment in this? And you think, as you think through these different pillars of business ownership, one thing I will offer, and again, the QR code that you have, you can access this. And we offer an entrepreneur profile. Really, it's based in our 30 years of being in business. We've worked based on sort of that DISC or Myers-Briggs. You may have taken those. And it really helps to pull out, what are your transferable skills? What are the things that are driving you? You know, are you somebody who is just mission driven, or are you, you know, you just want full speed ahead, doesn't matter what it is, you know, I'm just going at it. Do you need to have a business with a purpose, or is a porta potty okay for you? So these are areas where you can take a look at, whether it's in your career job search or business search. There's no charge. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes. I think it took me longer. I was much more analytical about it. But I'm happy to chat with you through what those results mean for you. Next slide. So your interest is piqued and you want to learn more about business ownership. We are happy to put you in touch with attorneys or financial advisors that our clients have worked with in the past. And we have some great reading material that we recommend. Again, it's all about education. So we at FranNet have worked a lot with Joe Matthews, who wrote Street Smart Franchising. And he does a really good job in his book of outlining the pros and the cons of franchising. The E-Myth Revisited talks about creating value in your business. And, you know, Built to Sell talks about having that, that asset at the end of the day. So I just want to just kind of paint an example of what that means, why it's important to have that tangible asset that you can sell at the end. You know, one of my coworkers used to own a bunch of UPS stores in San Diego, and he was a semi-absentee owner, and he was going to sell his business. And he took the new owners into the business to take a tour and walk through. And he went to go take them behind the counter to, you know, see what the magic that was going on behind the scenes. And he was stopped by the gentleman at the cash register and said, you can't go back there. And they had no idea, that employee had no idea that he was the owner. And that created value in the potential buyer's eyes, because they knew that this business could run without him. Next slide. And again, the SBDC, SCORE, the Small Business Association, all really great resources for you to look into and to get additional information from, and your local SBDC coach. So again, I'll share the QR code with you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Again, my door is open. If I can help advise or answer any questions in any way, would be happy to do so.
All right, thank you, Christina. Let's applaud. I know it's quite applause, Zoom applause.
Well, there's a lot to cover, and I cut a lot out, and you know, so there's you know, a lot that goes into it, Colette, as you know, as a former franchise owner.
Yes, and I have some questions. I noticed there are some questions here, and then I had a couple just based on what you had shared today. So one question here was, are there grants or loans to help purchase a franchise? So you talked a little bit about the funding process. Anything else with that?
No, grants, no. Again, this is a business that you are running and you are owning. So you would have to look at additional funding avenues.
Yeah. All right. And then what percentage of franchisors fall into the executive model? Any real life examples? So is cost for this model higher or lower than the owner operator type?
As for a percentage, I don't have that data. I can give you some absolute real life examples. So I kind of touched on that yes, you should expect the costs to be higher because not only are they typically brick and mortar, a hair salon, a fitness center, you know, there are some service-based businesses that you can run semi-absentee, but you're also hiring employees. So you have to think in that startup cost, you know, maybe this business is work from home. I am a semi-absentee owner, so I'm hiring somebody to go do the sales or to do the marketing. I have to pay a salary. So that's going to go into your startup costs. So examples would be, again, a hair salon, chiropractic centers, fitness centers. There are some that have not done well, but there's others who have. But those are historically the areas that people got involved in on a semi-absentee level. I have a client right now who's looking at semi-absentee and talking to, a tutoring company, talking to an advertising and marketing company, and talking to an estate sale business. Those are all able to operate semi-absentee at a lower cost.
All right. And Celeste is asking, do you know the startup time and cost to start your franchise? That was one of my questions. Well, there are two questions. One is, how long does the process take to get to selection, and then how long once to start up?
So yeah, and I did, in the interest of time, I cut some of that out. But one of the really important things with
I'm sorry, that's two different questions. I'm sorry, Celeste, I didn't really get your question. So yes, please answer that one, Christina, on the time, but I just reread it. I'm like, that's not what she asked.
When you start the franchise research process, that is typically anywhere from 45 to 90 days. That's typically what we're seeing. And, it's really important to think about franchise businesses as businesses that you are able to get full research and validation. So franchise businesses by law are they're governed by the FTC. So they have to put out a document called a franchise disclosure document every year. And that lists all of their financials. They list the financials of every single franchisee. It will tell you if a franchisee failed. It will tell you if there's been any litigation. So we can help coach and guide you through that process, but you will be able to research and you're able to call other owners. And so that goes as fast or as slow as you want to take it. So again, some of them go quicker, 45 days, some of them go to about 90 days. Another thing to consider is that if you are starting a business that's more home-based, it's a quicker startup time. So you might sign your franchise agreement in 3 months, go to training and be operational, 4 months from starting the process. If you're looking at a retail site, that's going to take another 6, maybe 9 months, because you're looking at, finding the real estate, building it out. So that's a longer process. Does that answer the question?
All right, I see a head nodding. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so, and Jack, who's our certification advisor, just notes here that California DGS SBE certification does allow franchisees. So, is there a standard? A lot of food-based franchises require 5 to 10-year contracts.
Yep.
Is this standard for non-food-based franchisees too?
Yes, it is.
So it's 5 to 10 years.
Yep, typically.
Okay. Is there a workaround or leeway with franchises that require a minimum net worth and or liquid assets?
A workaround. Well, if you think about, if you're going to start a business and if a franchisor is wanting to bring you on board, they want to know that you have enough money in the bank or capital reserves to grow that business. And they want to set you up for success. So is there a workaround? Maybe a business partner? But I think you should ask yourself, do you want to work around? Do you need, does that make good business sense to try to find a way to start a business and recognize that it's going to take, you might go a year without making any money. Year 2, you might just be putting things back into the business. It's year 3 to 5 that you really start to see the returns. So I think those are questions that are, internal to kind of ask yourself, is this the right time for me to start a business?
Great. And I noticed Christina mentioned also that the typical age is actually 45 to 55, I think you said. So it seems to be that the franchisees tend to be a little older and have significant work experience actually before they're starting.
You know, it's
So,
interesting too, Colette, is 45 to 65 has been what we've seen. But there's a big trend in younger, millennials starting businesses. Most of them have capital that, maybe their parents are helping with a cash injection or helping them to get a loan. But it's, I would say that that's a really growing trend of millennials who by nature really want to, be on their own. They don't want to work for somebody else. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves over the coming years.
yeah. I always laugh though, even though you're your own boss, you always work for somebody. You're working for that client. That client
Absolutely.
is your boss. So,
Absolutely.
all right. Another question here. Do you help potential franchisees to get back of house or accounting and HR support that the franchisor does not offer? And then what are the key things to look at when choosing them besides if you like the work?
So
Good
our
question.
role is typically going into helping you research and invest in a franchise. From an operational perspective, I would refer you to people like the SBDC, or oftentimes the franchisor may have other folks that they would partner with or refer you to for systems that they don't provide.
And I would add to that as a previous franchise owner that typically you're in your own city, so you're going to find those resources locally based on friends and or references and referrals and your own research. I had to find a bookkeeper. That was one of my happiest days in as a franchisee when I found a bookkeeper. But I went through a whole process. I worked with another gentleman who showed me how to find a bookkeeper, and he showed me what questions to ask. I did reference checks and everything, and that's how I found a bookkeeper. And so you do have to do that work on your own, and that is not provided by the franchisor. And I do think some people don't realize that. Everybody thinks it's kind of fully turnkey. It is not fully turnkey. There are services that you do have to provide on your own. Thank you for that question.
Absolutely. That's a really good question.
And
So
then, go
the
ahead.
things to look at when you're choosing a franchisor.
Yes.
Absolutely. There are a variety of things, and there, you want to look at when we work with our clients, we go through the assessment and we sit and we build out a business model that is 100% unique to them, their personal goals, values, strengths, down to how many employees do you have? Where is it? How many employees do you want to have? What do you want to wear to work? Are you cool with porta potties, or is that off limits? So when you're talking to a franchisor, you're looking for, does that meet my model? Is this going to give me the income that I want? Is this going to give me the lifestyle that I want? You're going to validate that with other franchisees, other people who own the business. So the franchisor, they want to sell you a franchise. That's their job. So when you talk to the franchisees, you can get into the nitty gritty of how long did it take you to make your money back? Are you getting the support that the franchisor is telling me that they give? It's important to figure out what's important to you from owning a business, and then in your research process to validate that with other owners.
Right, great. And there's another one here. Is it possible for individuals to own multiple franchisees at the same time? That's from Siobhan.
Yep, absolutely. What oftentimes will happen, sometimes people will start with one franchise business, or they will buy maybe three, but they'll start with one. A year from now, 18 months from now, they'll open another. Then they can maybe get those grown, put a manager in place, make an investment in another business. So yeah, absolutely. I'm actually working with a client right now who is looking to buy initially two different businesses. One would be operated semi-absentee, and one he and his wife would run.
Okay. Then Asia just noted that sometimes the vendors, and Asia is one of our advisors with the Restaurant Academy as well as Celeste, and but she noted that they require you to use their preferred vendors, even if you can find the same product with a cheaper vendor.
And that is going to be particular to each individual franchisor. So that's something that is, specific to each business.
And do you work with existing franchisors who need help finding the right franchisees?
We
Yes.
do. And that's part of our vetting process. So we have a team within FranNet that works to vet the businesses that are looking for growth and looking for expansion. And, a lot of them, we do work with larger franchisors who have their own internal development folks, but they work with franchise consultants because we're the feet, we're local, we're here, the feet on the street talking in the local market. And they can't, you need to leverage your resources to grow to the way that these businesses have their goals to grow.
Okay, great. And then how long should a franchisor be in business and, before they start doing, I guess, getting franchises? And do they have to have a certain amount of financial stability?
I don't know that I can specifically answer that. I think that as I talk with my clients, I ask them what their risk is. Are you okay with a business that may have been around for a while, but just recently started franchising? Or do you need less risk? Do you need to be able to validate with more owners? So some people fall into the, I'm okay if it's newly franchising. I can actually give my input into the business systems. I like that. And some people say, you know what, this is a lot of money that I'm spending and I need to be able to have much more validation. I need a proven business system. So I don't think I can say that there's a specific, requirement. I think it's specific to the person who's looking to buy the business, what risk tolerance that they're willing to work within. How do they feel about it?
Great. And then I have one last one. And then for those on the call, I wanted to show you one more thing. Oh, there's another question. Is it possible to purchase a failing franchise and relocate it to a different location?
I think that's, again, unique to the franchisor. So some of the businesses within our system, they'll have resales, but they're all geographically based, right? So if you are purchasing an existing business, is it failing? I don't know why they're selling. We can help you, help you ask the right questions to figure that out. But it's going to be unique to each individual franchise or what they want to do with that business.
Okay. And then one last question here on you talked about branding. And so how do you determine what is really good branding? Because if you're a regional organization, if you go outside of that region with a franchisee and there's not as much branding, then how do you decide whether a company has a strong enough marketing or brand perspective?
I think it's, again, I put that on the client. So within FranNet, our team that vets it, they have a system. But for example, we live in California. California is the last place people come to do business. So for the most part, a franchisor is going to start franchising in other markets that are easier to do business in. Then they start to get some validation there. And then they go through the long, rigorous process of getting California to approve their FDD, and then they come here. So, in the case, again, I'll just use the eco-friendly cleaning business. It's emerging, it's up and coming, and California, they launched here in the spring, and so they don't have great name recognition and brand here in California, but as the owner, you help build that brand. And some people are excited about that. They wrap my car with this, and I want to be the brand evangelist and make a name for it. So, that's something that is, again, unique to each person, what they're looking for out of the business and the brand.
All right, thank you. And so before you guys go, we have 2 minutes. So one minute, I just wanted to share with you a couple of things. And We have a workshop coming on Friday. It's called Financial Fitness, Take That to the Bank. And it's candid conversations about capital. We hope that you all would join us for that and learn a little bit more from our guest speakers, and it'll be fun as well. Then we have the future of restaurants with 3 speakers. This is our Restaurant Academy hosting this with Cisco Doolan's on Crenshaw and 27th Street Bakery. So again, there will be a panel, but there will also be some fun things that we'll be doing as part of that event. Connect with your customers and manage your business. We have a Grow with Google event on February 22nd. And then you all know, for those of you that have been with us for a while, you know about all of the workshops and great training that's being offered to be able to assist you. I advise anyone that has not completed, filled out, done, applied for the PPP or the EIDL to make sure to come for tomorrow's session. Also note that the California Relief Grant is open. It opened today, careliefgrant.org. China, I think you can find that and put that in there. We can drop that in, but that opened today. We did have our last workshop on that at 11. We want you all to go find the money that you need for those that already have businesses. For your existing businesses, get that money. And then for new businesses, consider how franchising may be an option for you and how you might plan for that in the future. So I hope that this was helpful. Christina, thank you so much for a great presentation today and illuminating the subject of franchises. And I'm sure there will be more questions, great questions though, but I'm sure there will be more, and we will bring Christina back. And if anyone is interested in the survey that she mentioned, please let us know and we'll gauge interest, and you could assess your business readiness for a franchise. So that may be helpful for those that are interested. So Christina, thank you again. Everybody, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you, and thank you for taking time out of your day to spend it with Pacific Coast Regional SBDC. Have a wonderful day and go get that money and grow your business. Know your numbers, grow your business. Let's go.
It. Thank you all. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.